Hello and welcome back to a Morbid Movies podcast with Dom and Mary. A slightly different episode in tone than what we normally do, Mary. We wanted to use this time to discuss Neil Gaiman. Obviously, as we record this in 2025, early 2025, and numerous allegations have come out. We obviously have to be careful with how we frame those allegations on YouTube, as we will be taken down if we are too explicit. However, I wanted to bring you, well, obviously we co-host this podcast, but I wanted to do this podcast with you because you are such a fan. I think may have even discovered Gaiman, like a lot of the films we do on this podcast, through you in some form. Way back, I was a big fan of Sandman, and I remember actually watching. I watched the American Gods TV show and then got into the comic books. So there's a lot of Gaiman that sort of I seem to be using the word permeate a lot at the moment. A lot of Gaiman that sort of really is stuck into modern popular culture. He's in music videos. He's in comic books. He's done cameos in things. He's everywhere, across the board. So what has this week been like for you as such a fan of Gaiman? And I guess the wider question and the much deeper question for the people that are listening to this, and also you know, we want that engagement from people. The wider question perhaps would be, can you separate the art from the artist? Will you still be engaging in Gaiman's art after this sort of week of allegations and the spotlight being on the artist negatively?
Well, I'd say I had heard, I forget how long ago it was, maybe a few months ago, some like rumblings that like when that first podcast came out about it, like the initial allegations. So when this came out, the article, I was at least prepared to hear bad news, although I'll be honest, the allegations are worse than what I was expecting. So I've had a little bit of time to digest it. I think the good news is that I've been a fan of his work, and I've actually, because he's always been such an accessible author, like I've had interactions with him online before. He's given me writing advice and things like that, and always seemed very approachable. So it did take a while to sort through those feelings when coming up against like such serious accusations as what came out in what was it, Vulture, I think, did the article this week. I was at least able to brace for it a little bit, but it's definitely troubling because of the seriousness. And it's hard because I'm a fan of like, I haven't read all of his work. Like, this is embarrassing for my goth cred, but I haven't actually fully read the Sandman series. But guess I truthfully have trouble with comic book format sometimes. Like with my attention span, I do better with just novel. But I do like quite a few of his books that I've read. So it's been hard to emotionally separate the man from the work in that way because I tend to, when I engage with things, think so much about the like trivia around these things and who made it. So I think it can depend on the person, as there's nothing wrong with loving work and holding work dear to your heart that turns out to be made by people who are less than perfect. It's, you're not responsible for the actions of anyone else. And I think it's kind of up to people's individual, comfort level on how much they want to engage with that. Because it's something where, like, I'm not going to go throw away or burn the copies of books I own, but I also, don't intend to give for further money to bad actors at the same time. And it gets trickier with Gaiman as well because he looms so large in goth culture and has been involved in so many projects that aren't just his, but also are other people's work, especially in entertainment, because he's done quite a bit of work screenwriting for, not just shows that he created, but shows that other people created. So it's that you kind of, to a certain point, have to accept that you're probably going to come up against some of his work because he's had such a wide influence. It makes it difficult, but like I definitely like I don't blame anyone who his work's important to, who, wants to keep on watching like Good Omens, for example. I like or wants to every once in a while read, one of his novels that they have on their shelf. But I also definitely understand people for whom it's, these accusations are a deal breaker and they just can't emotionally engage anymore because that shadow now hangs over it all. It's just like I feel like so much of this is just boils down to what people individually are able to take, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. I like the point you made there about bad actors. There's an argument, of course. We've I've done a short video on Marilyn Manson's new album. Having listened to that now, as a long-time fan, I engage with that just to listen to it. I don't necessarily want to invest more money into the artist. I think that, Netflix has greenlit a Sandman season two, for example. And there's an argument again there you mentioned with Good Omens. Of course, the actors are separate to Gaiman. They don't, they're not the same person. So, that work is creating work for them. So, there's an argument that again, each to their own. I would say, I personally wouldn't necessarily be rushing out to spend loads of money to support these artists now that I have that knowledge, that awareness, as it were, of their actions. And I'm sure there'll be many, many people that contrast this and disagree with this in the comments. Feel free. That's what we are, and what many platforms are online. You can have your viewpoint, and we will, of course, try to respond to as many people as possible. It's very much your decision, which I believe is what you're saying. As to whether you want to engage with that as well. It's the awareness. It's crucial that you don't ignore that these things have happened. I think that's the key, is that we know that about the artist. If you want to engage with a musician, a creative, then feel free to do that. But it's important that the awareness is there, and I think that's kind of what you were saying there, Mary.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And, like I said too, it's just it's hard in these situations too because especially these type of allegations, it's very difficult to prove positively or negatively what happened, especially since none of us were there. So you really do have to just kind of, for better or worse, feel it out based on your own instincts. And I know, like, we have especially it's like, in the American legal system where I live, we have that, innocent till proven guilty thing, in the legal sense, but especially when you're talking about like difficult to prove crimes like this, you kind of have to make a judgment call that goes beyond what the legal system is able to do one way or other. And then, truthfully, I don't feel like there's necessarily a right answer to something like this, which is, I feel like it ends up down to the individual and what their comfort level is with what they want to believe and want to support.
Indeed, absolutely. And while we're bringing this up to you, while we're discussing this, because of course Gaiman does, is so heavily ingrained in goth culture, predominantly people that view this, your well-being is our primary concern. So if you've been affected by any of the news or any of the allegations that were made, please go and research local, national support networks for some other things that might trigger you, because like I say, support is out there. As a mental health professional, it's very, very important to me to say that there is support out there for people. Certainly in the UK, and I know people in the US, there is support out there as well if you do need it. So certainly seek that out if you feel comfortable to do so. And yeah, thank you so much for engaging in this episode. I know it's a divisive one. I know it could cause again some debate, and that's what we're about. We're not doing it to farm engagement. We're doing it because again, Gaiman is a part of the culture that we are promoting on this channel,
Absolutely.
worth a discussion. So
Um,
certainly engage if you feel comfortable to do so.
the other thing is I would love to hear listeners' thoughts on this as well, because we haven't done any of his work as part of this channel, and I'm sort of two minds about that because he has been so influential, and I feel like his work is in some ways important to goth culture, regardless of who he's turned out to be as a human being. But I'm not really sure on what the best way to engage with that respectfully is right now. So if anybody has any thoughts they want to leave in the comments about how they think about that sort of thing, I would love to hear from others about that as well.
Absolutely, definitely. You're the reason why we do these videos and why we have this channel. So please do let us know what you think. Thank you so much for watching from Mary. We have been the Morbid Movies podcast. My name is Dom. It's a pleasure to interact with you guys. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And we will see you next time with another Morbid movie. See you later.